Okay, hope everybody's doing well and whatnot. We were unable to do the podcast today. Dylan had something going on. So, this is something too big to just let sit for another week. We have got to talk about this. So, if you have been living under a rock, unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to have a season. So, okay. So, this is kind of a unique situation because you have a bunch of different programs containing different weights, meaning, an Ohio State's going to weigh more than, um, you know, Indiana. So, you're kind of judging by the tops of these conferences and how are we going to do this? And there's so many more restrictions when it comes to actual schools than it would be for something like the NFL. Um, and what you've seen today was the Big Ten and the Pac 12 come out and say, we're not having seasons this fall. Um, it's unfortunate. It's stupid. I think personally it's idiotic. Um, I don't think that if you're going to have kids back on campus, and I know a lot of schools are, I believe Ohio State is as well, to an extent, if you're going to have kids on campus, you can have games. Um, you know, you can have games without fans. I have no doubt about that. You get into legal issues, and I think that's the main problem is these schools don't want to deal with, oh, hey, my son or daughter contracted it. We're blaming you. And if something happens to that person or that individual, and God forbid they die or anything else, um, legally we don't know the consequences of that. And it sucks. It sucks because the only other option, it looks like, to be able to have a season for Ohio State in particular would be to go to a different conference for a year or become independent, like a Notre Dame. And, when the news came out about postponing or canceling the fall season, I had high hopes that would be a road to go down. And I'm seeing that Gene Smith, the AD for Ohio State, is saying we're not going to look at any other conference. We're staying in the Big Ten. So basically, what does this mean? Well, it means you've seen Justin Fields' last game. Um, you've seen you've seen a lot of players' last games. There's some players that I question maybe they'll come back, like your Chris Olaves, who probably was going to make a big note as far as his NFL draft status this season. But the guys like Justin Fields, who was in the Heisman race, finished top three in the Heisman, had a fantastic season, made the playoffs, lost a close one. He was going to be a top five pick anyway if he didn't play next season for whatever reason, other than an injury, obviously. So, it sucks because, you know, you got to take the health precautions more serious than the on field losses, if you will. But when you look at this program and you look at the expectations, Ohio State is either one or two best team in the country, up there with Clemson. And, you know, I really think we could have won a national championship this year. And I think we could have won last year as well, or at least could have put up a really good fight. Now, LSU was unstoppable. But when you look at the landscape of college football this year, before all this went down, Penn State was Ohio State's toughest competitor. Um, and I think Ohio State could have lost to Penn State, still made the playoffs. So, um, when it comes to what could have been, um, it's really depressing because I really think Justin Fields could have been a Heisman Trophy winner. I think we could have won the national championship this year, and it's gone. It's gone. And, you know, you look at the legacy of, I don't know what Sean Wade's going to do. Like I said, Chris Olave, Jonathan Cooper, these guys. It's so hard to determine because you've seen Micah Parsons, who is going to be a first round draft pick, probably a high first round draft pick, um, basically say, yeah, I'm not going to play. I'm not playing. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm just going to hold out, work out, get ready for the NFL. And that kind of struck me just because of how early he came out with that. But the reality is, this is what it's going to be. And, I look at the recruiting classes, and yes, they are top of the top. Next year's, I believe, is number one or whatever. I don't know. I haven't looked recently, but they're top recruiting classes. So, yeah, that's a great sign. Of course it is. But I look at this roster, and I see Jack Miller and C.J. Stroud, who are two guys that I really love as quarterbacks. They're freshmen. They're freshmen. And, anybody who's going to blame Justin Fields, now he hasn't officially said this is his last, he's played his last game. But you look at these guys, and it's like, yeah, they look great. They have a great future ahead of them. But you can't just take a freshman kid who comes onto a college campus and throw him into big-time games. I don't care the level of elite that you are. The quarterback position is different from any other position on that field because it requires you to be an elite leader. It requires you to be very knowledgeable. You got to know not just your position. You got to know what the wide receivers are supposed to do. You got to know tight ends. You got to know running backs. You got to know line. And you can't just throw a freshman quarterback and expect everything to roll smoothly. And I know it's not just us who are going to be dealing with this issue, but, when you look at the potential that this team had, it's so irritating because I don't think that it was necessary to cancel the fall seasons. I don't think it was necessary at all. And I don't expect the SEC to, unless it just every conference does. And you already seen the Pac-12 do it, but the difference between the Big Ten and the Pac-12 with situations like this, Ohio State had two schools in their conference, with the Big Ten, who I believe very well could have made the playoffs, and Penn State and Ohio State. Now, without Micah Parsons, that's going to be a lot harder for Penn State, but still two elite top of the top schools in college football in this conference. You look at the Pac-12, they missed the playoffs the past 2-3 years. So, when you look at the Pac-12, who's going to make it? Oregon? Okay, you're going to get destroyed in the first round. It's not a huge deal losing in Oregon. Or not losing in Oregon. Losing the Pac-12 because when it comes to the end with the playoffs and determining a champion, they're not going to be in it. Or at least not in my opinion. So when the Big Ten comes out in an effort to be ahead of the deal, I guess, and you say, yeah, we're going to cancel the fall season and we're going to look at playing in the spring. So, number one, you're not guaranteed that you're playing in the spring. You have all of these top coaches, James Franklin, Ryan Day, Justin Fields is coming out saying we want to play. Trevor Lawrence saying we want to play. The President of the United States is saying, hey, yeah, we need to have a college football season. I don't care who the president is, that still is a huge deal. So when you see all these people coming out and saying, we need to play, we want to play, the NFL does this and, it gets worked out. The protocols get in place, everything's smooth. But because everything is governed different in the NCAA, we have to cancel the season. It's so stupid. So I was hoping that Ohio State, or at least the top programs, likely it would have been Ohio State and Penn State in particular, would say, okay, we're going to move to a different conference for this season. Because like I said, I really don't expect the SEC to say, yeah, we're not playing. SEC will have football. No matter how they have to do it, they've proven they'll play schools who, are Division 5, 4 schools. They don't care. So this is a complicated issue. But at the same time, some complicated issues really aren't that big of a deal, Just because an issue is complicated doesn't mean there's not a path to a clear solution. And I think the clear solution here is to say, let's play games, let's reschedule it so we don't have to have super far travel, and, say no fans and get the games played. You can do that. It's like I said, if you're going to have people in, or not in, but on campus in classrooms, even if it is reduced, Ohio State's a big school. It's not like there's going to be 10 people walking around. Why can't you get a group of guys together, under certain protocols and have a season? You can do it. But because we want to be so ahead of the curve here, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And the NFL, we'll see what happens with the domino effect with other conferences, but the NFL needs to come out and be able to put, not just on Mondays, not just on Thursdays, not just on Sundays. They need to get some Saturday games in there to offset the games that would be missed, because, everything around us right now is crazy. But when it comes to sports, I talked about this with the whole political issues with sports, and people are getting tired of seeing that. Football, people just want to watch it. If the XFL came back, I said this, it would destroy the NBA in ratings. Now, I didn't think about the international standpoint of it. But here in the U.S., if football came back tomorrow up against an NBA game, football is going to destroy it. Whether if it's XFL, probably even a high school game. So it's so frustrating, because it's like we have this term gets thrown around a lot, once in a lifetime player. You can't tell me that Justin Fields isn't a once in a lifetime player. The talent and the abilities that he has, 1 year, that's all we got to see of him. And I'm thankful that he came to this program, but the potential and what could have been is the worst part of this whole situation. And, I guess it's not much we can do about it now, unless Gene Smith comes out and says, hey, we'll pull out and we'll play somewhere else for this year. I don't know what to tell you. So, with that being said, let me know your thoughts. See you in the next video.